This is really just an introduction to scalextric for schools, a chance for us to ask some questions, a bit of show and tell, and it's basically an introduction to the competition and what you can expect. So a bit of history was scalextric for schools was a competition about 10 years ago. Funding ran out from Hornby and that, and ever since we've been trying to get it back up and running. This is our layout we have in school. We've gone for a single track layout. So we've actually got a crossover, and I'll take the cameras in a moment and we'll just do a quick overview of the track. So we've got one lane changeover. So effectively, it's one race track and they do 2 laps to complete a lap. So they go around both sides of the track. So it gives us double the length of the track when we're racing it. We've also put down some copper tape. We've been experimenting just to increase the conductivity, so as the cars go around the track, they've got that ability. So I'll give you a quick overview of the track now, so I'm not on the camera too much, and point out some of the features on our track, how we got up and running. Then we'll look at some of the cars and the ways we make them, and then it's basically just general questions and things like that. So we'll go for that to start with. If anyone's got any questions, just if you're on Teams and want to unmute yourself and just ask at any point, you can do. Facebook, I'm not quite sure what's going on with Facebook at the moment. It says it's recording, so hopefully it is. I think we have got some viewers on there, but we'll take that as we go. So we've got our double crossover here. So the idea is, as a car starts on one track, start now, we go round the track, follow it round, as it comes through, it crosses the other lane, so effectively you're doubling the length of the track all the way round. So that was one of the main things we changed the track. The design of the track, all the sculpting is actually foam, so we've actually used foam for that. Just expanding builder's foam, which then we modelled and had a sheet of plastic just in between the track surface and the foam. So that's allowed or ensured that none of the foam comes through and starts clogging you around on the track. We then just painted it with normal acrylic paints and then used some of the Hornby modelling materials which you've got there, and good old what everyone's got lying around, sawdust, just to build up the textures, and that's it. We've tried to avoid nailing or screwing the track directly down to the board. We actually made some wooden pieces which have just been ripped down the side. They can just hook on the very edge and then they can get screwed down to the board, just so it's going to make it a bit more secure. That's one of the cars we designed last year, so that's one of our design cars that we've just been playing about with. They do take a bit of testing and getting used to, but that's basically our track. So I'll go through the other bits, and if anyone's got any specific questions about track or cars or anything, we'll come back to that. So I'll just try and turn the Facebook page around. This came in very handy. I managed to get it off Amazon. The slot car handbook, it's got loads of detail in there about tuning your cars, setting things up, upgrading things. So that is very handy to have. And then available on the web page, on the Facebook group and on the web page, we've got things like the chassis. So we've got the laser cut original chassis from the original competition. We've just chosen to do ours in plywood, just to cut down the amount of acrylic that we're using. So that's one glued up. You can obviously see your motor goes in there. You've got your spaces for your brakes. These were originally designed for vacuum formed bodies, so they would then sit over and you trim your body to match your shell. So we've done some vacuum formed bodies where we CNC'd these using the F1 in Schools blue foam. It does vacuum form quite well. And what we purchased last year was one of from Texas, was one of the mini vacuum forms. It's about £500. It outperforms our Clark ones we've got. You can buy it with the vacuum, or we chose to without, so we just connect one of the old Henrys into the back of it, and it works brilliantly. It's a lot more efficient than the old Clark ones we had. So we've got them. We've also looked at doing some card models. One's obviously a bit beaten up. We actually looked at doing some card models of chassis just to get the pupils designing and thinking about designs where they can play logos and things. So we've got a range of different ways we've experimented. So blue foam, the F1 in schools foam. We tried to use some hardwoods and that, but the cutter tended to chew it up more, so it wasn't as successful. But what we have been able to do is once we've taken the back forming, we've actually been able to fill that with plaster and that, and make a plaster mould, so we can reuse that time and time again on some of the bodies that we've designed. And then it goes all the way through to 3D printing models, applying things like water slide transfers, so you can get your logos and different colours on there. So we try to keep them white and then use water slide transfers to apply colour and things. One thing that's worth talking about is your print orientation 3D printer. So we've been printing ours standing up with the 3D printers we've got. It does require less, depending on how it's designed, less support material inside and a smaller footprint in the printer. So that has been more successful than when we originally printed something like that, and all this was originally filled with support material and took absolutely ages to unpick and remove. In a nutshell, that was a very quick 10 minutes. This is an introduction to Scale Electrics for Schools. I have put a form on the website which people can fill in, because we're trying to negotiate with Yourself and Data another meeting with Hornby to discuss how we move the project forward. Currently, kits are available from Sandbach slot cars, which are 99% similar to what we originally got from Hornby. So they will Hornby. They include your motors, tyres, wheels, slot guides, all your gear and everything. So there's enough in there to make an individual car. We are trying to look at ways of reducing the cost of these, because at the moment our only supplier is third party. So that is something else to discuss that we're hoping to discuss with Hornby. At the moment, I think we roughly want around about 3,000 kits a year from people who filled in the forms. So obviously the more people we can get to fill in the forms, the more profitable it is for Hornby to start thinking about running the competition again and getting their official supports. Obviously things are difficult at the moment with the economic crisis that we're in and everything else. So we are also looking at hosting in the summer some competitions regionally. I know a few members have said that they're happy to host something, to see if we can get something unofficially happening this year, so we can just celebrate what's happening in schools and the worthwhile project. I mean, the kids just absolutely buzz about it and love coming and racing them. So it is a really engaging project. So it's really open to you now. If anyone's got any questions or anything specific they want to know about or ask, we're trying to work on a tie-up with OnShape as well. They're looking to do certain webinars for us on designing a car. We have got a tutorial coming over half term. Some finishing touches need to go onto that, which will just give you a basic design for a car, something similar to this, but probably not as much detail in it, but a sort of Group B rally 1980s car. Okay, has anyone got anything they want to ask? Either put their hand up, come online, or we'll go from there.
Hi Simon, is that for me?
Yeah.
Hi, so, all right.
Screen. I'm trying to look at a camera and look round the corner at a screen to see you. So
all right, okay.
Things, so.
What I was going to ask is, you know, in terms of regionals going forward, yeah. I'm from North Wales, so I'm quite close to you guys. I've kind of carried on doing the project with some year 10s.
Yeah.
But we're not too far from Chester. We're over in Denby.
Yeah.
So my question would be, would you rather kind of set something up and us come to the Northwest one, or would you like me to try and get some other schools involved across North Wales?
Ideally, we want as many schools involved as possible. When I go back, because I've been involved since day one, if that makes sense, with Scalextric. Back in, I think it was 2008, we first launched it, and the school that I was at, we did the pilot. We were one of the pilot schools. We did originally try and do regional competitions, but you didn't quite get the numbers. What I'm doing for Chester, I've got a programme that I've got to do in February with about 3 local Chester schools, where we're running Scalextrics as a competition for, it's part of the Duke of Westminster's Foundation. Right. But we're hoping to introduce it to them 3 schools then, with the view to, in the summer, expanding that into a Northwest. So that would include yourselves if you wanted to come over and do that sort of thing. I know there's a couple of other people regionally who are trying to team up with people within the group and look at doing it that way this year. My last conversation with Hornby was they were looking to have it as an annual event and have everyone in one location. I can't say too much because the discussions are still ongoing with who they were talking to, but ideally there's a point at the moment where we're thinking we might just have to do our own competitions this year and show what we can do. So we've got more evidence to take to them and present them with. So yeah, I'm trying to ask them if they'll provide us with some prizes or something, or some of the other people who were previously involved who are keen to re-sponsor the project again. So it might just be that we look at doing a Northwest, a Northeast, a Central, a South. I know there's a few schools around the M25 that are keen to get involved. So yeah, anyone, it is basically spread the word. And I'll say I'm happy to do another event like this where actually people come to the school and can actually have a go at it and see it a bit more action, because it's so hard to try and do this on live with schools' technology. And I don't know if it's the Wi-Fi or one of the school's firewalls that are blocking things and that. So yeah, you're completely welcome to come and join us in the summer, and that's the plan anyway. Around about June time, once all the exams are finished, we'll host something here. I can get access to the assembly hall and things like that, or we can do it within the department, depending on which day and date we go for.
Right stuff. The only other thing I was going to ask is, which year groups do you currently do it with?
We're doing it Key Stage 3 at the moment.
Okay.
Just because of where we are with things. I was off most of last year, so I haven't had that opportunity to establish it, apart from the ones we've started. So we've got a group of Year 10s involved who are going to act more as, off the screen, more as mentors.
Yeah.
The idea is that we're going to run it as a Key Stage 3 project, and that will then feed into our options and things like that moving forward. But initially there was no age limit on it when the original, and we don't want to do that. It will probably be a similar idea to some of the other competitions where we have an introductory course, beginners, and then more intermediate and advanced as we go through. But initially, all I want to do is just get people involved and just get the students having fun. And that's that. So maybe in January or something, we can, if you know people in the area who want to get involved, I'm happy to host that here one evening, and they can come and have a go, race on the track, and just come and have a fiddle and see what it's all about. Because I mean, we've got the laser cutter, we've got 3D printers, we've got pretty much everything we need to support other people. Because that's one of the other things we've looked at, is that actually being having support centres where people who haven't got access to some of the equipment can contact them and get things made, if that makes sense.
Yep, certainly. Thank you.
As well, slightly some more on the screen. Right. Anyone else got any other questions or anything they'd like to ask? I don't know if we've had anything on Facebook. We've got a few watching, but no questions there.
You've got a couple of questions in the chat.
All right.
Talking.
Let's have a look. So, guidance on travel size, etc. Right, it's not digital. We're running the sport track There are some compatibility issues with the digital, running digital. You can run it on a digital track as an analog version, but the cost of the digital chips is ridiculous. We haven't investigated that as a way of doing things recently. It's probably something that will need to happen in the future, but at the moment there is a ready supply of sports track, and that's what we've been tending to run it on. The other part of the questions, do you have any guidelines on the track layout, size, etc.? The guidance I'd give you on the track is we went for donations. So we just put a call out to parents, pupils, if anyone had any track laying at home or sets that they didn't want anymore, would they bring them in? And we were inundated. We had about 5 or 6 sets within a week. I mean, we've actually given away some to other schools now. We're roughly working on an 8 by 4 foot board. It used to be an old blackboard that we've repurposed, and that seems to work quite well. It used to be hanging up on the wall over in the other side of the classroom, but it was a weight issue. It was originally 18mm MDF. So we've actually cut a lot of that out, and it's a lattice work of MDF underneath it with a thin layer of ply on top. In regards to layout, originally there was a set you could purchase from Hornby, which was the basic layout, but then we found each year that Hornby tended to bring one of their nice sets made up with all the scenery and everything on. So you never quite knew what track was going to turn up. One year it was Silverstone, another year it was something different. So it is pretty much, if you've got a basic track, you're all right to get started, and then as we progress, we'll look at standardizing tracks and things as competitions go on, or at least give ideas about what sort of track length and things are going to be. But at the moment, probably 2 or 3 free sets will give you a decent layout that you can have a play about with.
We only had to buy a couple of extra added pieces.
Yes, we had to buy. We found on eBay a lap counter, which runs off a 9-volt battery, so you can put in how many laps you want it to do, and it will then tell you the fastest time. We have slightly progressed in technology now. There is an app which I know is available on Apple phones called Mini 4 Lap, which will actually, if you set your iPhone up over the top of the track, tell it how many lanes you've got, it will actually give you a digital readout on the screen as the car goes around and record each lap. The only things we bought were the crossover pieces, and we needed a quarter length straight somewhere, because despite planning the track out and everything else, it didn't quite fit together. So, and the hairpin, and we bought the hairpin. The rest of it was all donated. We're also running it off 2 power supplies just to ensure we've got enough power as you go round. The copper tape works quite well, but you do occasionally need to reapply it just over that little part. What I would say is make sure with the copper tape you get the double-sided conductive one. If you just get the normal one, it doesn't work. I think the next step for us would be possibly to look at soldering and having a feed wire running underneath and each set of track soldered together, just so we're ensuring that there's always a supply around the track as we go. Type in sandbach slot cars into Google, that will come up, and they've got a schools pack on there. I think it was £60 roughly for 10 sets, so it works out about £6 each. That is the next conversation we're trying to have with Hornby about if they will resupply the parts. If you fill in the form, I don't know if you have or not, but if you fill on the online form, that will give us an idea of more evidence to take to them. The general consensus seems to be that people want to pay around about £3 or £4 a set, which I think is quite reasonable. But as I say, at the moment, everything we get as our main supplier through the group is actually from a bloke in his shed or in his garage who orders it all from China and that. So that's where we are with that at the moment.
You just had a question about is conductivity an issue you've faced?
With older track, definitely. We were given some very old track from the 80s, and quite a lot of that was warped. So we've kind of gone belt and braces with the copper tape. It's probably not needed, but it just reduces the chances One thing I would say with any of the track is once you get it to actually flip a piece over, let's go and grab one. Just on the bottom of the track where it joins at each end, it's folded back over to the piece of plastic. Especially at the joints, it's always worth just getting a screwdriver and just pressing these down and making sure they are nice and tight. Otherwise, that tends to be the areas where you do lose your connections. And again, with the copper tape, we found little bits of copper tape in between the grooves and then having to pick them out. It just causes a short. But the newer tracks parts seem to fit together well. What I would say is we found with the landscaping of the track, don't be too over adventurous. If you go for too much changing gradients, it does seem to damage the track more than others. I mean, if we can, we probably would like to look at replacing the track with brand new, but at the moment we're working with what we've got. And I know certainly when Hornby were doing things before, the idea of soldering, so having two wires off the piece of each track into a chock blocks seemed to solve all them problems. It's just how long it would take to sit and solder it all together and do that. So it is something you can do. The easiest way to make contact would be just to put it into the Facebook group and just say anyone based in the northeast. There were a few schools before up that way and a couple in Scotland that were involved as well. So there are people a bit all over the place. So the easiest one is probably just put it into the Facebook group and do that. Obviously, read the next message. Obviously, as we progress through the year, once we know who's really keen and wants to participate and look to do something nationally or regionally, we can start to set up them links a bit more officially. Dave,
and someone's asked about putting some new images on the Facebook and a new layout, which we can do that. No problem.
Yeah, we can do that. We'll get. I'll go round once this is over. I'll just do a video over the whole thing, so you can just see the whole thing of the layout. It needs a bit of tidying up because we've rushingly put the copper tape on just for tonight, just to make sure that when we put the car around the track that nothing went wrong. But it does need standing off, just going around the edge and just tidying them all up a bit. But it has improved the reliability of the track, I would say, using the copper tape. We've obviously got the main track, so it's a single lane track, even though we use both sides of it, as we've already explained. So it will go around the track, comes down the back straight to the hairpin, goes through the crossover, and I will do this a lot better later and put them on by the end of the week, round both sides, and then it comes back up. It's when it gets to the crossover point here that we actually get the idea of using both lanes. So we're doubling the length of the track. We've not gone for the idea of pupils racing against each other as such, mainly because they then get a bit too enthusiastic. I'll just do half the track there so you can see, and I'll do the other half. They get a bit too enthusiastic, the car goes flying off and crashes. The real trick to it working is having it so it runs around both sides. So we class one lap by the time it comes back to its original starting point and crosses back over, and we've got the lap timer there that we can use. So the other half of the track.
Someone's interested in knowing how your twin power supplies work.
Okay, I'll get a picture of that. So that's the other half of the track. So it just spins round, and again it just crosses over there. All we've done is because we've got a larger layout, hopefully you can see. I'll just move the camera into it. So there we go. We've actually got because we're short of lengths, we've actually used another power connecting piece on the back there, but there's no power going to that. Because we got more than one track donated, on the actual power supply, there are actually two leads going straight into it, so it's just two normal power supply plugs. We switch it from 16 to the double 16 volts, and then just plug it in. So because we got the two supplies, we just plug it both in, and it's as simple as that. We're just using one controller to avoid the idea of pupils in one controller, so it avoids that idea of racing and crashing. Because because you're always going to have one track that's slightly short of the other, so it just makes it a bit fair if we go for that. Okay, got another question just coming in. Yeah, we just got the copper tape. The thing with the copper tape, I'll lay it there so it's opening there. You need to make sure it's the double conductivity, so it's conductive on both sides. I can share a link from Amazon where I got this. I think it was about £5 for 12 meters. It does actually, one strip is enough to do both sides of the track. So we lay it down. Hopefully that's on screen. Somebody might tell me if it is. Can you see that or not? We've laid it down as one piece and then just went through the middle of it with a Stanley knife and then just tuck it down each side. It does need a bit trimming. It is a bit tight around some of the corners. Hence why it's a bit messy. We need to go through with the Stanley knife and just clean them up. But what it does do is it will allow it to span the joints from one section to another. And also if it does rip in a place, you can just put another piece over the top and it doesn't seem to affect the ride of the car or anything like that. Right, I'll stay online for a few more minutes then if anyone wants to ask anything. Ooh. If not, thank you for attending. Thank you for watching. I hope it's been of some use. Again, my main plea is please just fill in that feedback form so we can get as much information as possible.